The base went dark just before the storm hit. No power, no radar, no flight clearance. Every bird grounded, no one moved. Then, through the chaos, a shadow roared in from the clouds. Lights off, flying low. It touched down hard, dropped 3 wounded soldiers, then vanished back into the storm. No call sign, no radio, no pilot listed. Hours later, when command reviewed the footage, someone whispered, "That patch? She wasn't supposed to exist." Welcome to True Veteran Stories. Before we dive deeper, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? And if you believe these untold stories deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. The storm hadn't been forecasted, not like this. It rolled in fast, brutal, and wide, swallowing the desert in a wall of gray that surged like a living beast. Lightning cracked the horizon, casting skeletal shadows over the silent helicopters and empty hangars of Forward Operating Base Falcon. Then everything went black. Generators sputtered once, then died. No comms, no radar, no perimeter lighting, only the howl of the wind through the blast walls and the faint echoes of shouted orders swallowed by the storm. Inside the ops room, Colonel Dawson stood rigid, jaw clenched, knuckles white on the edge of the table. He hated being blind. Surprises were worse. "All systems down," he barked, his voice nearly lost to the wind. "Completely," said Sergeant Mason, squinting at the backup display. "EMP level wipe. Even flashlights won't respond. It's like we've been erased." Silence filled the room. Somewhere in the back, a lieutenant muttered something about sabotage, but no one engaged. Not yet. Not until the storm passed. Until they could see, until they could trust what they saw. Then the rumble came. Low at first, almost mistaken for thunder, but it grew steadily. Movement, intention, rotor wash. Aircraft. Mason blinked. Impossible. Nothing had clearance. Colonel Dawson leaned toward the thick blast-proof windows, now framing only black and bursts of lightning. Then another sound cut through the storm, a violent sweep of rotor blades slicing the gale as if daring nature itself to resist. From the blinding darkness, a shape burst into view. Low, fast, lights off. "Apache," someone yelled, coming in hard, too fast for conditions, too low for standard approach. It tore through the air with something feral, untamed, reckless. But it didn't crash. Didn't even stagger. It flared perfectly at the edge of the rain-slicked tarmac and dropped 3 passengers in medevac gear directly onto the dark pad. Then lifted again, not high, not clean, just enough to vanish back into the black from where it came. Blades blurred against the lightning, tail rudder disappearing into thick storm mist like it never existed. No communications, no landing codes, no pilot name, not even a ghost trail on infrared. The wounded were rushed to the trauma tent. All 3 had been tagged MIA 3 days ago during a botched recon op east of Dara province. The recovery window had closed. Command had declared them presumed dead. Now they were here, alive but unconscious, frostbitten, soaked with fuel from a bird they didn't have, delivered by no one they could name. In the next 20 minutes, the base scrambled to reorient. Emergency protocols activated. Fuel records cross-checked. Apache serial numbers double-checked. Call logs searched. Radar pings reviewed. Nothing. The Apache didn't exist. Not on record. Not on manifest. Not in the logs. No pilot cleared to fly that night. It wasn't until someone replayed the grainy overhead drone footage, captured by a lone UAV that somehow survived the blackout, that they noticed it. The patch. Just before she turned, a 3-core angle, visor up, lightning flashing. Her shoulder, olive flight suit, soaked through. Right shoulder, an oblong patch, threadbare, faded colors. Someone froze the frame, zoomed in, cleared the noise, stared. "Zoom again," Dawson muttered. Top left quadrant. There it was, a symbol no one had worn in nearly a decade. Classified, buried, deniable. Not special forces, not ghost recon. Something older, deadlier. The room went silent. Colonel Dawson stepped back slowly, as if absorbing something too big to name. "That's not possible," one of the techs whispered. "She doesn't exist anymore," another said. "Apparently," Dawson said, eyes still on the frozen image of the pilot mid-turn, braid whipping past her cheek. "She never stopped flying." And with that, everything changed. The rain had eased to a steady drumbeat by dawn, washing the scorched metal of the landing pad and revealing deep rotor scars in the tarmac, too defined to be recent. Whatever bird touched down had been guided by more than night vision. It had landed by instinct in zero visibility without assistance. Like someone who'd memorized every inch of this base long before it was even built. Colonel Dawson hadn't slept. He'd spent the last 5 hours in the surveillance room watching and rewatching the short clip. That single 2-second flash of the unknown pilot stepping from the cockpit, braid whipped horizontal by the storm, soaked flight suit clinging like a second skin. The shadow of that patch was just clear enough to unsettle every man in that room who'd ever heard the rumors. "What the hell does that symbol mean?" asked Captain Rise from Intel, leaning on the edge of the console. Dawson didn't answer. He simply reached for a secure file, untouched in nearly 11 years. He slid it open and laid a photo next to the screen. Grainy, black and white, field-torn, dated 2013. Same face, same braid, same eyes. Only the uniform had changed. "Ma'am," Ray said, stunned. "This file says she died in Kandahar, wrote her explosion, body unrecovered." "No," Dawson's voice was low. "Even this file says she was declared dead. Not the same thing." Reyes swallowed hard and looked again. That patch. "Shadow Echo," Dawson said. "Unofficial designation. Deep cover rotor operations. Off-book strikes. Dark zone evacuations. Ghost recovery teams. Her squad ran missions no one logged. No ranks. No honors. Just results. And she was the only one who ever flew back every time." "You're telling me this woman, this pilot, was part of Shadow Echo, disappeared over 10 years ago, and just landed in Apache in a blackout storm like she never stopped flying?" "I'm telling you," said Dawson, turning slowly toward the other officers, "we're looking at the last living pilot of a program we were never supposed to speak of, and she just brought 3 MIA soldiers home from a war zone no one claims to be fighting." The room stayed silent, not out of disbelief. No one had room for that anymore. But because the implications were larger than anyone dared say. If she'd survived, it meant she'd continued operating solo. Unrecognized, unsanctioned. It meant every no-name extraction over the past decade in places no one ever admitted. Deploying might not have been accidents or lucky breaks. It meant someone had never come home for a reason. Outside, the sun tried to punch through a wall of bruised sky, casting long, pale beams over the wounded tent. One of the evacuees, a corporal from the 119th, had woken briefly, whispering one word before slipping back into unconsciousness. Ghost Hawk. Not pilot, not helicopter. Ghost Hawk, a code name that hadn't appeared in any military database since 2015. Back in the command office, Dawson brought up archive mission reports. Hundreds of them flagged red or marked asset unrecovered. In at least 27 of them, the enemy was overrun by unknown aerial support, arriving under impossible conditions. No origin, no call sign, no official footprint. She'd been out there all this time, flying under the storm. But the question now wasn't whether she existed. It was why she'd chosen to reveal herself. "Colonel," said Mason, bursting into the office, "someone just found the Apache." Dawson stood fast. "Where?" "Scrubland Edge, south perimeter. No heat signature. It's just there." Within minutes, the team approached the aircraft under full caution. What they found confirmed everything and answered nothing. The Apache was intact, still humming faintly. No pilot, no prints, no gear. Just the machine, still warm to the touch, with half a tank of fuel and a cleaned cockpit. Except for one thing. On the co-pilot seat sat a folded piece of cloth. It wasn't standard issue. It wasn't even recent. It was the top half of a flight suit, faded, torn, stitched with that same impossible patch. Next to it, a bullet casing tarnished by time, with initials crudely etched into its surface. "A.V. Kane." Reyes looked at it. Dawson didn't answer. He didn't need to. Just then, across the base, every comm unit sparked back to life with a single encrypted burst. Untraceable, non-repeatable. One line of audio, distorted by interference, but unmistakable in tone. "I'm not done yet." Then silence, and all over the base, personnel looked to the skies again. Because somewhere, above the clouds, still churning, someone was flying. Someone who was never supposed to return, and she just reminded the world she was watching. The rain had cleared by nightfall, leaving the base wrapped in heavy silence. No one dared break it. The Apache was still parked where they'd found it, untouched, guarded, sacred almost. Inside command, no one spoke above a whisper. There was an understanding, unspoken and urgent. What had happened didn't belong in reports. Not yet. Not until they understood who they were dealing with. Colonel Dawson sat alone at the long glass table in the mission debrief room, the Apache's flight log open before him. Except it wasn't a log. It was a message. Handwritten. ink smudged by weather. One line. If you read this, then I trust you haven't changed. No name, no signature, just that, and the patch folded underneath. Shadow Echo. Outside, on the western edge of the base, a lone figure moved through the outer fencing. No alarms, no spotlights, no alerts. The cameras didn't catch her, the thermal scans missed her, but the wind shifted as she passed, as if the base itself remembered her footprint. And inside Hangar 9, classified, padlocked, sealed since 2014, motion sensors flickered on for the first time in a decade. The guards never saw her. But the technician cleaning gear inside would later swear on everything that at 2:14 a.m., a woman walked into the far end of the hangar, dripping wet in a dark flight suit. No rank, no name, no explanation. She stopped at the flight line, placed something on a crate, nodded once, and vanished. When they checked the cameras, there was nothing. But the crate held the unmistakable silhouette of a sealed black case. Inside, a logbook, Arya Kane's logbook. The name alone shook the core staff. Even saying it aloud felt wrong, like summoning a ghost, like whispering something the military had worked so hard to erase. Kane wasn't just MIA, she was myth. The whisper between Black Ops pilots when storms closed in. The name carved into mess hall tables at bases that didn't exist. The pilot who never missed. The girl with the braid who never landed in daylight. The shadow who flew where orders couldn't reach. And now her logbook. Real solid pages sat on Dawson's table. He turned the first page. March 2016. Grid 7F. Extraction under zero comms. Hostile airspace. Rescued 4. Lost 1. No support. Mission logged as civilian chopper crash in official records. Then another. Then another. 57 entries, none recorded in any military system. All matching real incidents where survivors were found with no memory of rescue. No evidence of extraction. Just the impossible fact that someone had been there when they weren't supposed to be. Dawson closed the book and looked up as Reyes entered, face pale. "She's in the base," Reyes said. Dawson didn't move. "Where?" "Outside Hangar 12. Perimeter cams picked up a distortion. Not her face, just static, like she knew where the blind spots were." "Because she designed them," Dawson said softly. "She tested them in 2012. They didn't send a team. They didn't sound the alarm. They just waited. And 23 minutes later, she walked into the room. No gun, no helmet, no call sign, just boots soaked in mud, braid long, dark, face unreadable, silence." Reyes started to speak, but Dawson raised a hand. Arya Kane took a breath, then placed a small silver object on the table. It was a dog tag, but not hers. The name on it matched one of the missing from the most recent storm. "You brought them home," Dawson said. "I always did," she replied. "Where have you been?" "Where no one looked." He stared, and now she glanced toward the door. "Now I need a bird one night. After that, you'll never see me again." "You're asking for classified hardware," Reyes said, voice rising. "You've been off radar for over a decade. You're not even military anymore." "She's the only reason that Apache touched down without killing anyone," Dawson cut in. "She's the reason 3 soldiers are still breathing." "You think I care what patch she wears?" Kane looked him in the eye. "There's one more out there, caught in the blackout. No one else knows. But I heard it before your comms fried. I can reach them, but I need to leave tonight." Dawson stared at her, torn between protocol and instinct. Then he pushed back his chair, opened the vault locker, tossed her a key card. "Hangar 12. She's fueled." Kane nodded once, turned bid-C, then stopped. "Colonel," she said quietly, "this storm won't be the last." And then she vanished into the rain. 2 hours later, the hangar was empty. The Black Hawk that had been on standby was gone. No radar blip, no thermal, no tower log. But 40 meters south, as the next wall of lightning rolled in, farmers reported something impossible. A lone helicopter flying low and fast, hugging the terrain like it was made of shadow, vanishing into the thunder just as the winds began to scream. And later that night, a flare rose over a ruined village. Red. One long burst. The signal someone had been found, and someone had never stopped watching. This is the story of Arya Kane, the last pilot of Shadow Echo, a ghost who flew the storms no one dared to chase, a silent guardian in a war no one acknowledged. If this story moved you, if you believe these voices deserve to be heard, leave a comment below, share where you're watching from, and never forget the ones who fly alone. True Veteran Stories. Thanks you for listening.